folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. Today we're going to have an unboxing of a game I've had my eye on for quite a long time, but which the publisher was kind enough to just send me. This is Napoleon, the Waterloo Campaign 1815. This is a Tom Dalglish design. Those of us who've been around for a very long time may recollect that this was actually released at one point by Avalon Hill. This is the 4th edition that Columbia Games did a Kickstarter for a couple of years ago, and we're going to take a look at the contents today. Now, this is a block war game. It's kind of one of the very early block war games at that, and it is a very well-regarded game. My personal Napoleonic guru, Jim Orzowski, speaks very highly of it, for example. And it is an operational level game of the Waterloo Campaign and not just the battle, which to me is a little more interesting. I have, after all, several, shall we say, games on Waterloo, the battle already. But we're going to open her up today. So the first thing we notice is it is in the old-style Columbia box, which means there's a sleeve and an inner box, which is a corrugated cardboard. So before we get any further, we're going to have to remove this shrink wrap. Let's take this guy off. Hopefully we won't have too much trouble with this, because when the shrink wrap defeats us, it is embarrassing. So here we go, not too much of a problem. So here's the sleeve, and it's pretty nice looking cover. I don't know who did the cover art, but it's pretty nice looking. Cover art, Napoleon at Waterloo, 2004 by Howard David Johnson. And they have the rules on their webpage as well. So this is like the standard inner box that Columbia Games has been using for a long time. However, their more recent releases come in a more traditional box with just a top and a bottom. Check out my video unboxing of Rommel in the Desert for more information on that. So as predicted, we get a giant bag of blocks, and the dice are in here too. And these are big blocks too. These are bigger blocks than, say, I get in Commands and Colors. And there's quite a few. Now, we would presume here that the blue blocks are French, the red blocks represent the Anglo-Allied army, and the black blocks represent the Prussians. I have no idea what the green blocks are. So let's take a look at the map. So this is the map, and this is on what I would call a cardstock, rather than being a mounted map. That said, it's probably the thickest such cardstock I have seen, and it does lay pretty flat without any prompting on my part other than maybe just poking it a little bit. So here we have Brussels up here. Liège is over here. I'm not sure if you can see that. Here's Mons, here's Namur, here's Charleroi. Here is the Four Arms, Crossroads at Quatre Bras, Wavre, and Waterloo, where 3 of the major battles of the 100 Days campaign took place. Now, the map art is by Tom Dalglish, the designer, who is also an extremely gifted cartographer. And I think, while this is maybe not a super dazzling map, I think it's a really nice looking. And I'm actually quite interested in this cardstock. Now, like I said, the newer Columbia Games just come on mounted maps of exactly the kind you would expect to see. I hadn't seen one of these before, but it's been a while since I've handled one of the newer games that's not one of the newer games. So we get a rule book, all right? And here's the rule book. This is not a high complexity game. For those folks who say, and I agree with this statement, by the way, that we need easy games to learn in the wargaming space. That is a sentiment that I agree with completely. I just also point out that there has never been a real shortage of easy war games for people to learn here in the wargaming space. For some reason, and I'm probably somewhat guilty of helping to perpetuate this, given my tastes. There's never been a shortage of easy-to-learn war games floating around. It's just that the more complicated games seem to suck all the air out of the room. So this feels like an 8-page book. It is an 8-page rule book. 3 columns, pretty attractive, full color. They may be printing these booklets in-house, or maybe they were at the time, I'm not sure. We can see that there's 3 different types of troops, the exact 3 that you'd expect, infantry, cavalry, and artillery, plus you do have leaders here. And this is, I'll show you when I get to the stickers for the blocks, because the way this works, this is as I said before, a traditional block war game, which we also sometimes call a Columbia-style block war game, because Columbia has been the leading publisher in the space of block war games for a long time, although lots of other folks have done block war games at this point. This is the traditional kind where the blocks are stood up like this, and there'll be a sticker on one side that player, the owning player, can see, and the other side will be blank. So, Stratego jokes aside, this is a mechanism that was pioneered by Tom and the folks at what was then Gamma 2 Games in the very early 1970s. And they have an entire line of very well-regarded block games. And I guess I'll point out some of those block games, including Richard III and whatever the one is about fighting in Scotland, are available on Steam as digital implementations as well. Now, the combat here is a little more involved than just rolling numbers on dice. You get these two battle mats. At least I got two of them. I'm not sure I see a reason to have two, where you actually deploy the forces that are battling as a left, center, or right, and then a reserve, and then you play it out on this battle diagram. So there's a little bit more to it than just rolling dice off, as I've seen in some other block-based games. And yeah, there's basically 8 pages here. Now, I also got an extra. This may have been a Kickstarter extra. I have no idea. Napoleon and Eagles. And then here's Napoleon Double Blind. Okay, so we have a supplementary sheet of additional rules, one of which is rules for playing double blind. I would probably make the case that some of the benefit that one would be getting in terms of Fog of War out of playing double blind is built into the game already because of the blocks. But certainly if you've got multiple copies, not knowing where the blocks are would add to that. So here's another option to play. And then on the back of that, this I had no idea was going to be a thing. This is a set of guidelines to integrate the Eagles card game, also published by Columbia Games, into play of this game, Napoleon. I didn't realize that was possible. Now, that is a tactical battles game. And I really haven't caught up particularly with what has been going on with the Eagles card game. I don't even know if it's still available, to be honest. But the cards are pretty nice, as I think you can see. So if you have Eagles, you can do that. There's a Civil War version or a Civil War card game from Columbia as well that I also haven't looked at in a long time. Now, we do get some setup cards. I always love setup cards, and these look nice, and they are enormous, which is great. And in fact, they're bigger than the blocks. They're not too much bigger than the blocks. They're about the size of the blocks. But this will tell you where to set everything up. This is great. So indeed, the blue ones are the French, the red ones are the Anglo-Allies, and the black ones are the Prussians. And the green blocks are used for marker. Now, we also have, I've gone through these before, so I'm not going to go through it again. I also got a Columbia Games catalog here. Check out their stuff at ColumbiaGames.com. They're great people, and they do some really good games, both in the wargaming space, almost all of which, if not all of which, are block games, and in the role-playing space. So here are the stickers, and I hope we're not getting a ton of glare off of the lights here, because this is a very brightly lit room at this point, because these are foil stickers. So here we got your French block stickers, here you got your Anglo-Allied, here you got your Prussian, some blanks, and some markers. These go on the green block. So squares, it's a bit abstract to put units this size in squares. I'm not really clear on what size these units are supposed to be. It looks like they're divisions just based on the organizational charts. You got a core here, so that gives you 2 divisions plus some artillery. Now, the map, you might notice, well, how do you move on this map? There's like no hex grid. Some of the Columbia Games block games do have a hex grid. Others are area movement. This one basically functions as point to point. All the little intersections here are different places that the blocks can occupy and potentially be fought over. So nice production here. This is several years old. It does look like the game was last revised in 2013, which is now 11 years ago, shockingly enough. I'm not sure if that's the date of the Kickstarter or not. I'd have to look that up. But this is one of those games I have played. I think of the Columbia block games, the only ones I've played, the only one I've played was East Front back in the day, and that was a previous edition of East Front. Maybe we'll bring you something about that at some point in the future. But in the meantime, today, we have had a look at the venerable classic Napoleon, the Waterloo Campaign by Tom Dalglish. This is the 4th edition. This is what's currently available from Columbia Games. It, as I said, is very highly regarded. It is also 8 pages of rules, very easy to learn, built-in fog of war, very appealing game for those who have an interest in this topic or in block games in general.
Massive thanks to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, whose support and encouragement make what we do at Ardwulf's Lair possible. Thank you, patrons. Links to help support the channel are in the video description, so check out the Patreon, the Ko-Fi, and the merch store where you can get snazzy Ardwulf's Lair t-shirts, drinking vessels, and other cool swag. There is also an affiliate link for Noble Knight Games in the video description. If you buy stuff through that affiliate link, it helps us support the channel with Noble Knight store credit. Thank you, Noble Knight. Until next time, thanks for watching, and happy gaming.